Chapter 37, Understudy. Of the nearly 20 randoms who dared to storm Jeff's penthouse, 3 survived. Soon, they would wish they hadn't. All 3 were badly injured. 2 had been shot by Jeff upon entering, and the third, the self-nominated head thug, had been taken down by a well-placed round to the knee. Jeremy and Trevor wasted no time securing them, using rolls of trusty and efficient duct tape to bind them to chairs and gag them before dragging them into separate rooms. The wind rushed through the shattered window with an eerie howl. Jeff climbed to unsteady feet and immediately went to where Jack was slowly finding his own footing. "You okay, Jack?" Jack nodded slowly, rubbing his arm and testing it for mobility. It still hung limply at his side. He would need to have it looked at. "For the most part. You?" "Yeah." Jeff had a large red welt forming across his face, but other than that, he only seemed shaken. He placed a hand carefully on Jack's good shoulder. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you in that position, and I didn't mean anything I said." Jack put his good arm on Jeff's shoulder and squeezed it reassuringly. "It's okay, Jeff. I didn't mean any of it either. I understand. We're good." "It was shitty, and I never want to do that again." Jeff sighed and shook his head, pulling Jack into a one-shouldered hug, being careful of his arm. "Me either," Jack reassured him as they pulled away, with a slight but entirely genuine smile. Matt appeared in the doorway, out of breath, with the bright pink sniper rifle slung over his shoulder, just as Jeremy and Trevor were dragging the head thug into the bathroom. "Jeff, you picked the worst apartment to try to get a shot on," Matt said once he'd stopped panting. "Why'd you think I picked it, dumbass?" Jeff grinned back at him. "Fucking impressive marksmanship if you were able to get the shot." Matt looked smug. "Excuse me, I took down 4 of those assholes, thank you very much." Trevor and Jeremy returned to the living room, and Trevor flopped down on the blood-splattered couch, ignoring the shattered glass that lay scattered over the floor. 3, by my count," he ribbed playfully. Matt shook his head, still grinning. "Whatever, man, I helped." "You guys did fucking awesome," Jeff beamed before growing serious again. "So what the fuck was that? What just happened?" "We got so lucky, Jeff," Jeremy began, adrenaline still running high. "Trevor still had Ryan's stuff with him." "Ryan's stuff?" Jack repeated, mishearing him, cocking an eyebrow. Trevor grinned wide, flashing canines. "Yeah, Ryan stuff. You know, RPG, sticky bombs, proximity mines." "Ah, Ryan stuff. Of course." Jeff rolled his eyes while Jack shook his head. "So, chaos in a bag, basically," Trevor added. "Did you know Ryan replaced the warning label on his rocket launcher? It says, 'Warning, not only will this kill you, it will hurt the whole time you're dying.' Pretty sure that's not standard." Jack and Jeff scoffed incredulous laughs. Matt smirked and shrugged. "Well, it's not wrong." "I know, right? But I mean, what could it possibly have said before he changed it? Like, what's the warning label on a rocket launcher gonna say? Anyway," Jeremy continued, cutting Trevor off before the conversation derailed any further, "we spotted them following us and took care of it." "Just like that?" Jeff asked skeptically. "Just like that," Matt and Trevor replied almost in unison. "I think they underestimated us," Jeremy admitted, sounding a little disappointed. Jack scoffed, but it didn't mask the pride in his voice. "Their mistake." "Big fucking mistake," Jeff muttered. "Never underestimate the B-team, goddamn dream team." "Yeah," Jeremy agreed with a proud chuckle. "But we heard gunshots over the phone, so we came straight back here. Even after I said not to." Jeff scowled, but there was nothing genuine about it. "Come on, Jeff. Aren't you glad we didn't listen?" Jeff smirked sheepishly. "Yeah, you guys did great." They took in the sight of the room, bodies strewn everywhere, blood staining the carpet, splattered over the walls that were pocked with bullet holes, chunks of safety glass from the shattered window scattered over the living room floor. It wasn't quite as bad as the aftermath of the party Gavin and Michael had thrown following Matt and Jeremy's initiation into the fakes, but then the lads were known to party hard. "Where are Michael and Gavin?" Jeremy asked, suddenly noticing their absence. Jeff frowned solemnly. "We don't know. Haven't been able to reach them. The asshole you just dragged into the bathroom said he knew where they were. He might have been bluffing, though." Somehow, he didn't think that was likely. Shit. What about Lindsay? Is she okay? The nerves that Jeremy had until recently reserved for worrying about Ryan were starting to kick back in, but he kept a level head. "She's okay. She was the first to know," Jeff assured them. "She said she was somewhere safe. Didn't say exactly where that was." The reality of the situation hadn't fully hit them yet, but with the realization that even Jeff didn't know everything that was going on, it was just starting to sink in. Jeremy chewed his lip nervously. "So what's the plan, Jeff?" Jeff just frowned and shook his head. "I don't know. We check in with Lindsay. We try to figure out what the fuck's going on and where we go from here." Trevor sat up on the couch with a start, dark eyes shining brightly. "Well, we do have 3 house guests. How about we start by asking them?" Jeff grimaced at the thought, remembering the results of the last interrogation he'd witnessed, but he held out his hands. "Hey, you're more than welcome to." Less than 10 minutes later, Jeremy had bloodied knuckles and the first guy's name. Sam. "Sam, you still with me, buddy?" Jeremy asked as the guy spat blood. Sam had been one of the 2 randoms shot by Jeff. The bullet was still lodged in his shin, so it wasn't an easy task to get him to talk. He'd mostly been moaning in pain since they took the duct tape off. He'd barely hissed his name through clenched teeth. "Sam, gonna need you to focus here, man," Jeremy soothed, playing the role of good cop, despite only a few moments ago being the one punching him in the face. "I need to know what you know, and then we can get you to a hospital and make all this pain go away." The man was probably younger than Jeremy, maybe only just. A typical wannabe gang member, not quite tough enough to roll with the big boys, but still desperate enough to do some damage and mean it. That was how most of the randoms they'd encountered so far seemed to be. He was still immature enough to be a stubborn prick, though. "Get fucked!" he spat again, this time at Jeremy's face, but Jeremy stepped back to avoid it easily. "Come on, Sam, this shouldn't be a hard decision for you. Just tell us what you know." "Fuck you," he reasserted, grimacing through pain. It sounded like he was regaining control. Trevor stepped forward, cocking his head to the side, an inquisitive look on his face. "Mind if I have a chat with Sam, Jeremy?" he asked innocently, a kind smile on his face. "Sure, man. Go ahead," Jeremy enthused, waving him forward, but internally intrigued by what Trevor must be thinking. "We can't play good cop, Jeremy thought to himself as he turned and walked back to lean against the doorframe with Matt. Trevor approached Sam as if he was a small child, lost at a shopping mall. It immediately put Sam back in a position he thought he could control. "What's with the eyeliner?" Sam jeered through his teeth, seeing his opening and going for it. "It's not eyeliner," Trevor blurted out defensively. "It's face paint. It's just really hard to get off around the eyes." He rubbed at his eyes for a few seconds. Jeremy and Matt exchanged a confused and slightly worried look. "Oh my God!" Trevor exclaimed with a light and carefree laugh that cruelly juxtaposed the situation, seemingly accidentally. "I'm such an idiot. I shouldn't have said that. I'm such a bad liar. The guys always tell me they can see right through me, anytime I'm trying to pull one over on them. I mean, would you believe me if I told you I was the vagabond?" Sam looked confused and genuinely scared for a moment before blurting out, "Bullshit." Jeremy's eyes flicked nervously from Sam to Trevor, whose grin hadn't waned in the slightest. It was unnerving. "See, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not the vagabond, by the way. I'm just pretending to be him while we find him. Kind of like his understudy, yeah?" Jeremy's eyes went wide and he coughed to try to get Trevor's attention, tried to get him to stop giving away information, but Trevor made a slight hand gesture that indicated he knew what he was doing. Jeremy sure hoped so. "He ran off, you see? Needed some time alone, but now we just can't find him." Sam looked shocked at the news. Then it clicked to Jeremy what Trevor was doing. Devious son of a bitch was probing for information. "I mean, you guys don't know where he is, do you?" The innocent look on Trevor's face completely masked his intentions. It was perfect. It was also extremely unsettling. Regardless of what this guy knew, Trevor's tactic meant they were now going to have to kill him. Jeremy made a mental note never to piss off Trevor. The look on Sam's face was enough to indicate that he had no idea what Trevor was talking about, which meant that as long as something hadn't already happened to him, there was still a good chance Ryan was safe. Well, from the randoms, for now. Probably. Still, it gave Jeremy some hope. Trevor rolled his eyes. "Well, you're not much use now, are you?" Might as well go check with your colleagues, see if they know anything. With that, Trevor turned and left. Matt and Jeremy exchanged a look of utter confusion, but followed Trevor silently out of the room, leaving Sam to mull it over alone. The acrid scent of solvent lingered in Gavin's nostrils. His face itched, but he couldn't move to scratch it. He opened his eyes, but he couldn't see anything, and for a moment he thought he might be blind. The faintest glow of light was visible, through what he gradually realized was a bag of some sort covering his head. He was seated, but leaning back, like in a dentist chair, and he could now feel that his arms were strapped down at the wrists and above the elbows. His legs were strapped down too. He tested for any kind of movement, but he still felt sluggish and couldn't shake the feeling. He definitely wasn't going anywhere at any rate. His head spun. He felt drunk. Was he drunk? He searched his memory. Where had he been before? Everything was fuzzy. Why couldn't he remember? He was with Michael. Michael? His tongue felt fat in his mouth, lazy and slow as he tried to form the word, but it came out as more of a gurgle. Miku? Gavin? The reply was quiet and muffled by the bag, but it was unmistakably Michael. Michael! He wanted to ask him questions, if he was okay, what he remembered, if he could see anything, but it felt like his mouth had been stuffed with cotton. Gav, are you okay? The tone of his voice was too concerned, too serious, bordering on scared. Gavin hummed an affirmative, managing a crude uh-huh, rather than mumbling unintelligible noises that might make Michael worry further. You had a fucking seizure. Michael's voice cracked slightly as it caught in his throat. I thought it was game over. A seizure? That's probably why he felt so out of it. Do you remember anything? Michael pressed, wanting to keep him talking, reassurance he was actually okay. Gavin licked his lips and swallowed, moving his mouth slowly and deliberately before attempting to speak. No. That came out much clearer. His voice was still shaky and weak, but at least it was comprehensible. What happened, Michael? Hearing Gavin's speech improve, Michael's voice picked up, a newfound rage replacing some of the concern. They fucking got the drop on us. It was bullshit. I don't know what they used, but you had some kind of reaction or something. You had a seizure. It scared the shit out of me. I thought you were dead for sure. All I remember was going to sleep, and after that, waking up here. Gavin thought back. He could remember leaving the penthouse after Jeremy, Matt, and Trevor had gone for the usual stakeout. They'd gone to get food. They'd stopped for bevs. Then it was all flashes, snapshots, hands grabbing him and a bitter taste at the back of his throat, the hum of an engine and Michael's voice yelling, just yelling. Fucking chemical warfare, Gav. What a fucking joke. He heard a noise that sounded like a stifled, involuntary scoff. They weren't alone. Pussies didn't even have the guts to try to take us head-on, Michael continued, a little louder and more forcefully. He must have heard the noise, too. It sounded like he was trying to lure them out of hiding. Gavin decided to try to help. Well, you saw what happened with Ryan. They're not exactly the brightest bunch, Michael. We took him out pretty easy last time. A voice in the darkness replied, I doubt you'll get so lucky this time. Oh, real fucking original, then. Let me guess, you're gonna use us as bait as well? Try to flush out the others? Good fucking luck. Michael spat the words with venom. The voice laughed, a menacing chuckle that made Gavin uncomfortable. I think smoke them out might be a more apt analogy, the voice retorted. But then again, we hardly need to do that when there's nowhere left for them to run. Gavin felt goosebumps crawl over his skin. The voice, whoever they were, something about them sounded clever. Cleverer than the randoms they'd encountered so far. He had a bad feeling about this. Didn't you idiots see the fucking video? Michael raged. We always come after our own, and it doesn't fucking end well for the other guys. In this case, you dumb fucks. The voice was not at all disturbed by the outburst. Oh, but you see, that's what we're counting on. This time, we're ready. Well, fuck. Well, fuck. Matt, Jeremy, and Trevor scowled at the now apparently deceased random duct taped to the chair in the laundry. Trevor pushed the random's face up and her head lolled to one side. Yep, that is the doornail. Damn, she lost a lot of blood, must have gone into cardiac arrest from shock. Guess we'll have to settle for 2. I was hoping to get some kind of statistical significance out of the 3. Wow, Matt ribbed. You are such a fucking nerd. Trevor grinned, not denying it. Jeremy frowned. Sure seems like a real waste, though. Well, maybe not. Trevor glanced down at the large hunting knife he kept at his hip as part of the vagabond getup. He hated himself a little bit for even thinking of it, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. Gross, 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 so fucking gross, Matt repeated over and over as he watched Trevor slice through the cartilage of the windpipe in the dead girl's neck, stopping short when the knife glanced off the vertebrae. Almost there, Trevor assured them in the least possible reassuring way. Jeremy had already turned away. He had been removing her gag when Trevor made the first cut, which had oozed still warm blood all down her front. That was enough for him. Trevor worked with remarkable precision, easily driving the knife through the joints and alternately twisting and slicing to separate the head from the spine. He gripped the girl's hair and gave the head a gentle shake before pulling it free, droplets of blood splattering quietly on the tiled floor of the tiny laundry. Jeremy looked green. Matt had gone pale. They weren't good guys by any stretch of the imagination, but even they had their limits. Meanwhile, Trevor hardly looked fazed, holding the severed head triumphantly. That's fucked. That's so fucked up, Matt muttered to himself more than anything. And that's exactly why it's gonna work, Trevor grinned, still managing to look completely innocent despite the glory display. Trevor took the head and, with Jeremy and Matt in tow, returned to the heist room where they had been keeping Sam. Trevor casually tossed the head at him, and it bounced on the ground with a dull thud, before rolling to a stop at Sam's feet, long blonde hair wet with blood trailing behind it, glassy eyes staring up at him, mouth hanging open. Sam screamed. Trevor smiled. So, she wasn't real helpful either, it turns out, Trevor purred, absently playing with his still bloody hunting knife, not brandishing it menacingly in any way, but still managing to make it look far more terrifying than if he had. Fuck, 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 Sam stammered, trying to shift his weight in the chair to move himself as far away from the severed head as possible. Sam, you want to tell me something, or... Trevor didn't even need to finish his sentence to get a response. I'll talk. What do you want to know? Jesus. Trevor nodded, looking over to Jeremy, who was now over the shock of Trevor's apparent unconventional expertise and intimidation, at least enough to carry on. Let's start with you. How did you get involved in all of this? Jeremy queried. Sam swallowed hard and glanced down at the head, a reminder of the fate he might share if he refused to cooperate. I was in trouble with the Vagos, owed them money for drugs. I was selling and got rolled and couldn't deliver the cash. One of them told me I could work it off by doing a few jobs here and there. Put me onto some websites, told me I might get phone calls with directions. If I participated, there might be money in it for me. But then I found out what it all really was. And what was that? Jeremy asked, raising an eyebrow. An opportunity. There were so many of us, we could do some serious damage. It was fun. Jeremy's eyes narrowed. Who runs it? Sam shook his head. No one runs it. It's just like a community, run by the people. But surely someone started it. The orders come from somewhere. Someone has to be behind it. Sam shrugged. Things just kind of happen. I don't know how it all works. Jeremy rubbed his face with both hands, trying to piece everything together in his mind. How are you all coordinating? Does someone need to check in or what? Sam swallowed hard again, cringing at the taste of blood he couldn't get out of his mouth. There's someone monitoring centrally. After the last time, we couldn't risk it. The fuck does that mean? Someone's wearing a wire? Matt interrupted, catching on before Jeremy and Trevor. Sam nodded. I don't know who, though. Maybe more than one, depending on how many people. Trevor immediately checked for any hidden mics on Sam, but came up empty, which was fucking lucky given the way Sam was spilling his guts like he was. They couldn't afford to let the randoms know how much they knew already. They needed to stay ahead of the game. Matt ducked out of the room to go check the bodies strewn about the apartment and presumably filled Jeff and Jack in while he was at it. All right, Jeremy said, switching gears now. How was tonight supposed to go down? Sam cringed, but Trevor casually flicked the knife. splattering a trail of blood droplets across Sam's face, and he quickly reconsidered. We were supposed to take whoever was here alive. Try to find out where the others were hiding. What others? Michael and Gavin? The other guy said he knew where they were. Sam shook his head. No, the others. Red and the rest of her team. Jeremy was confused, but didn't let it show. Maybe they'd gotten some false information. Lindsay had been spreading rumors and ideas. Maybe they'd gotten out of hand. He made a mental note to check later. What about the vagabond? Jeremy pressed, feeling a creeping concern for Ryan again. He doubted the kid knew anything, but he had to at least try. Sam smirked slightly. You really don't know where he is, do you? He huffed a laugh. He's long gone. We all saw what happened to him. You know he probably offed himself, right? Jeremy couldn't contain his anger. He punched him right in the mouth, then in the stomach, then square in the face again, causing his nose to crack and spurt blood. Trevor grabbed hold of his arm before he could land another punch, but Jeremy was still seething. Sam spat blood and fragments of teeth, coughing and spluttering while Jeremy collected himself. They don't know where Ryan is either, and he's full of shit. He doesn't know Ryan. It took a minute longer before Jeremy could calm down, and Matt returned, shaking his head. Out of earshot of Sam, he mumbled to Jeremy, No mic on any of the bodies I could find. If he's telling the truth, it's probably on the guy we got tied up in the bathroom. Jeremy nodded, turning back to Sam, who seemed to be recovering from the beating. Where are Michael and Gavin? What was the plan for them? And you'd better give me a straight, honest answer, or I swear to God. Jeremy balled his hand into a fist again, and the look on his face said he wasn't putting up with any of this shit. Sam screwed his eyes shut and shied away briefly. I'm sorry, please. We all got the same instructions as far as I know. Take as many of you guys alive as we can, and then we were meant to go back to... He hesitated, opening his eyes to glance again at the head at his feet. Sandy Shores. He sighed and shook his head. There's a self-storage shed at Sandy Shores. That's where we were meant to take you. Well, them. You three were just meant to be dead. That's comforting, Trevor said sarcastically with a grin, glancing back at Matt, who grinned right back. Jeremy looked Sam right in the eye. So Michael and Gavin are alive? Sam nodded, not breaking eye contact. As far as I know, yes. So they're bait for the rest of the crew. Sam nodded again. How long do we have? Sam bit his lip, but immediately flinched as the sharp crack in his front tooth cut through the skin, and he winced. The first fire was the signal. We were given 12 hours from then to get everyone back there. So, I don't know, whenever the first fire started, probably 8 or 9 hours until they make contact. I honestly don't know what's meant to happen after that. I wasn't told. Jeremy was frustrated. It made sense to keep as many people in the dark as possible, but still, someone had to be pulling the strings. How many people? I don't know, Sam muttered, head down. Jeremy sighed. Sam, we're going to be walking into another goddamn ambush, and I just want to be prepared. Tell me what you know. Sam was close to tears now. It was probably the stress sinking in, but it could also be his rapidly swelling nose. I don't know. I don't know anything else. That's it, I swear. Jeremy looked at Matt and Trevor. They shrugged in response. Trevor smiled that dazzling, innocent, genuine smile of his. Well, Sam, I'd just like to say thank you for being so cooperative. Sam still looked terrified. So I get to live? Trevor walked up behind him, quietly drawing his gun out of sight. Oh no, don't be silly. Of course not. He pressed the barrel of the gun against the back of Sam's skull and pulled the trigger, sending a plume of misted blood and brain matter into the air. The look on Matt and Jeremy's faces said it all. Matt stared, mouth agape for a few moments, before commenting, Trevor, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but I think it's safe to say you've been spending too much time with Ryan. Jeff heard the shot from the living room and stuck his head through the door. What the fuck happened in here? He demanded, eyes scanning the room, settling first on the body in the chair, then Trevor, casually wiping the blood off his hands, still smiling innocently, then to the severed head on the ground. Jeff let out a long breath. Well, I'm just gonna back the fuck up out of this room. Yeah. Don't you want to know what we found out, Jeff? Trevor called after him. Jeff's voice drifted in from outside. Yeah, just not in that room. Trevor shrugged, and the group headed back to the living room to debrief. Trevor made a beeline for the kitchen. Jeremy, Matt, and Jeff joined Jack on the couches. Lindsay just texted, said she's coming back here. She thinks the coast is clear, but she said she's got someone watching her back. Jack put the phone away as the others sat down, whatever that means. Cool, yeah. Jeff nodded pensively before turning back to Jeremy and Matt. So, what's the story? Well, Jeremy began, running a hand through his hair. They were told to take us alive. Well, you guys, anyway. He sounded so disappointed, but continued. Because they fucked up, they're gonna try to use the others as bait. We have 12 hours from when the first fire started until they're supposed to make contact. The first fire started around maybe 6 p.m. That means if they have Michael and Gavin, they're at least going to keep them alive that long. What about Ryan? Jeff asked. Do you think they have any idea where he is? Jeremy's heart lifted, hearing that Jeff was still thinking about Ryan too. It made him feel less guilty. Probably wasn't the right word. Maybe selfish was better, for worrying so much about him. No. Jeremy shook his head firmly before his stomach flipped again at the memory of Sam's words. He probably offed himself. They don't have a clue where he is. Jeff just nodded, sensing Jeremy's discomfort. So we've got until dawn, Jack emphasized the urgency. Pretty much. He said they were taking them to a storage shed at Sandy Shores. It might still be a trap, though. I don't know if I trust him, or at least the information he's been given, Jeremy explained. Trevor had been banging about in the kitchen, but suddenly piped in. Well, we do have one more to corroborate the information. Just don't forget he's probably wearing a wire, so we want to be careful what we say around him until we disable it, Matt reminded him. Oh, right. Good point, Trevor mused. Anything we want them to know? Jeff frowned, rubbing his chin, but Jack spoke up first. I mean, it's probably best if we make them think we're still in the dark, right? Take the mic off him and fake an execution or something? I mean, we could try setting a trap of our own, Matt suggested. It sounded like a good idea. Matt was always great at planning these kinds of things. He was a sort of mastermind in that respect. No, Jeff shut it down immediately. Don't let them know. It's too risky. If they have Michael and Gavin, and if they think they know where we are, what's to stop them from straight up killing them? That's the end game of all of this, after all. They just want to make sure they can get all of us in one go. Jeremy nodded. You'd have to take out all of us to stop the fake AH crew. I'll make sure to cut the mic before we start then, Trevor assured them, picking up a tray and carrying it like a fancy waiter to the table for the others to see. He'd made a macabre mockery of a surgical table, an assortment of kitchen implements, mostly knives of all shapes and sizes, but also somewhat more disturbingly, a corkscrew, a melon baller. Laid out on a tray he'd covered with a formerly white, now blood-splattered tea towel that had been hanging near the sink in the kitchen. Anyone want to join us? He asked, smiling brightly, eyes glimmering with just a little too much enthusiasm for what was about to take place. The others looked around the room, concern and vague disgust crossing their faces. I think we're good out here, Jack said. Trevor shrugged. Suit yourselves. I'll film it all anyway, so we don't miss anything. That's great, pal, Jeremy called after him as he headed to the bathroom where the thug was about to experience his probably very painful and undignified last moments on Earth. At least it would be easier to clean up in there, Jeremy thought to himself. After a silent beat, Jeff let out a sigh and said, I'm sure I don't say this often enough, but Trevor's a creepy motherfucker.